and welcome to Morning Moments. Thank you for joining us today, whatever platform that you're on and whatever time you're really watching this. I have a special guest today, another connection with JC Films. I've had so many JC Film connections. She is a screenplay writer. She is a extra actress. She's been on Vindication, Chosen, and other movies. And it is my pleasure to bring Debra Moore to Morning Moments. Welcome, Debra.
Thank you, Andy, for having me.
It's such a delight getting to know you and talking to you. Uh, I just want to ask you, what do you do, and why do you do it?
Well, I've had a history of doing volunteering for mental health uh, issues with NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness, in the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. And for the past 10 years, I've been able to teach classes for NAMI for family members who have a loved one with a severe mental illness. And we've had about 500 family members come through our classes in over 10 years, and people have gotten help and hope. I do that because my mother had mental illness and she had debilitating paranoid schizophrenia that was the result of postpartum depression. She was never diagnosed, she was never treated, she never got any counseling, any medication, and basically didn't know what had hit her. So when I volunteer, when I take a class, when I learn more about mental health issues, I do it in honor of my mother. Being involved in faith-based films has been what the Lord has used as a conduit for some of the painful experiences that I've had, because I have been able to be on faith-based films like The Chosen, where people, the director, Dallas Jenkins, and the writers showcase that people have issues. They have possibly a mental health issue or a physical issue or some sort of issue. They're real people, just like we are, just like I am, just like you are, just like my mom was. And they don't try to hide it. They don't try to sugarcoat it, so to speak, with Matthew possibly having an Asperger's aspect or being on the spectrum. And I think that we should be coming more towards those type of things, especially as we try to reach out in the Lord's name to people that have mental health difficulties or people that have any difficulty, really, because everyone has something. So we all need to be aware, and especially with what's been happening in COVID with the suicide rates going up, the mental health issues going up, it's affecting more people, it's affecting the young generation, it's affecting them more drastically. And we should all be trying to get educated and understand what we can do, understand about medications and major mental illnesses, understand about mood disorders and the brain being the largest organ of the spinal column. Mental health issues are connected to your body, and the Lord can cure anyone of anything, but He may use medication for that. He may use counseling for that. He may use a show like The Chosen for that, to allow you to understand spiritually and mentally and physically the holistic combination of that, and how we need to be caring for all different parts of our bodies.
I have been a big champion for behavioral health because of my background and the different supports that are out there. And I know that through the years, the families sometimes have not been real supportive. There's support groups and things that, like you were mentioning, where not only do we need to pray and and help support the folks that are struggling with mental illness, but the challenges that has on their families as well.
Exactly. There's an enormous stigma. Here I am later in life. We won't talk about how much later, but here I am later in life, and still just now, in the last 10 years, openly talking about my family's mental health issues.
Yeah.
And so there's a stigma. We need to overcome the stigma. I think young people do that better. And I think that if we follow their lead, we can get people help. Um, I believe that faith-based films are part of that because there is better content in the films. There's less of a shaming, less of a condemnation, less of a traumatic thing, which some of the mental health issues are shame and guilt and condemnation and unforgiveness. And we need to open that up. And part of the way to do that is with faith-based films.
Yes. Faith-based films in general tell stories, and that's what's
Right.
great about movies anyway, is that it's an opportunity to take a story that was on paper and put it into to a, on screen where people can actually see it and get the story, and that same message of redemption and
Right.
that can be seen too through that story when we go through our just our life journey.
Right. And part of what I was taught to do and part of what the Lord has taught me to do, because NAMI is a secular organization, a nonprofit. So the person that's teaching the NAMI class, the NAMI family, the class, me, is a Christian, which makes my faith basically showcased. And so part of what the Lord has done with that is he said, you know, your mother had mental illness. And unfortunately, with that came a very traumatic uh, situation, which is what you see on the news, where there's some domestic violence. She's decided to take her and herself to heaven, her and her children to heaven. She's asking me, hey, do you want to go to heaven? I've been to Sunday school. I'm thinking, sure. I mean, heaven's great. You know, why not? Let's all go to heaven. And then she puts a sign in the window of the trailer that says, you know, the place where we lived in the home and says, well, you know, I have a gun and I have children. I will shoot if you try to come in. And so this has been the result of her being alone with this postpartum depression that has developed into a postpartum psychosis that nobody really noticed that she had, but she did have it. And so when she shot herself and myself and my brother, um, the Lord deemed us, we didn't die, we survived. And nobody died. We all survived. And that's why the name of my screenplay is Walking Miracle, because we were all, my brother and I were both shot at close range 3 times in the back. And I still have a bullet in my back that was too close to my spinal cord to remove. And so it's still there. It's a scar, but it reminds me how the Lord can redeem anything. The Lord can restore anything. I know many people watching this video were not expecting me to say that, what I just said, because I do have joy. I do have peace. I do have the Lord. I do have redemption. I do have restoration. And the reason why I would share my story is because I want people to be able to forgive in the name of Jesus Christ, like I've forgiven. I've forgiven my mother. I've forgiven my father. I've forgiven the people that were involved at that time in my life. And because of that, I can now go help other people. Because of that, I can say to a family that's struggling with a mentally ill loved one, look, separate in your mind the mental health issue from your loved one. Put the mental health issue here, put your loved one here, and then try to work towards them with, as you were talking about a family member, empathy, communication. It's different than with most people. They have different needs than most people have. And because later in life, one of my children started exhibiting some mental health issues, I started investigating. What is this? I don't want to deal with this again, God. You know, one of those moments. I thought I was done with this issue, God. And he's like, you're not done. And I want you to understand. And so going to NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, faith-based mental health a nonprofit called Mental Health Grace Alliance, taking classes, understanding more about mental health issues. How can I help my loved ones? My loved ones who have mental health issues now are in mental health recovery. Praise the Lord. I mean, they are in mental health recovery because if your loved one is depressed, they're not going to be able to do what you think they can do. They may look fine on the outside, but they may be paralyzed on the inside. If your loved one is in psychosis, they're not in their right mind. They're not thinking properly. They don't want to do anything bad. They absolutely don't want to do anything bad. And I think that's what happened with my mother. She did not want to do anything bad. But because no one would give her the proper help back then, what, 60 years ago, almost now, um, she was in psychosis. And she was also a Christian, which means Christians can suffer from mental health issues. And I know at some point, someone in watching this video may be turning it off right now.
Yeah.
But please don't turn it off because we have to help our brothers and sisters, whether it's our issue or whether it's their issue, or whether it's someone that maybe doesn't know the Lord yet, that we need to be praying for, we need to be helping. And if we all did this, there wouldn't be any mental health stigma.
Those of you who watch my show, you know I have a lot of counselors on. I have a lot of people in the faith-based counseling and coaching, and also, of course, films and music as well. But I have a passion for being able to have people such as Debra to be able to share their heart about uh, the issues of behavioral health and the issues of mental illness. It's nothing we need to be ashamed of. We need to bring and say, God, what can you do to help me in this
Right.
situation? He loves you, cares for you, and there's hope for you. And sometimes we need to reach out for professional help, medication, and counselors, as well as pastoral and support groups as well. Debra, thank you so much for sharing your heart today, and I'm sure this is going to help somebody else. Somebody needs to pass this message on to others,
Especially
and
around the holidays. Thanksgiving
absolutely,
and Christmas can be very difficult for our loved ones and our family members that have loved ones with mental illness. So please go to the website, NAMI.org or Mental Health Grace Alliance, or you can feel free to email me, Debra Moore 462 at gmail.com. And I would love to have a talk with you and have a prayer with you and see what can happen.
absolutely. Those websites that you're talking about has been flashing on the screen as we've been talking, and those ways to get a hold of those organizations as well as get a hold of Debra. Thank you so much for sharing that. As we close today, uh, I would like to also, not only as you're passing this on, but I also would like for you to take time and pray for Debra, that God would continue to put her in the right place at the right time. She wants to be in more movies. She wants to be on more things. She feels that God's opening doors for her, and just pray for her. Pray that God would allow her to have the platform she needs to share her heart. Debra needs your prayers, and you need the practice, folks. So pray that God would richly bless her as she follows her purpose, her plan, future, and hope that God has for her. Thank you for sharing today. And thank you for joining us for Morning Moments. And if you would, keep coming back for some more Morning Moments.